Thank you, Akanksha. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here, excited to see you back. We had a very energetic morning. Thanks for joining us for the afternoon session. My name is Harsh Jagadisan. I'm the Chief Publishing Officer for Springer Nature. I'm based out of Heidelberg, Germany. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time here in Bhubaneswar. It's a beautiful campus. So really looking forward to this panel as well. Vikram has landed. Pragyan is exploring the moon, but I'm still high in euphoria. That's what science, technology, moonshots can do to lift the mood of all of us globally and also drive progress. Emerging technologies will have a significant part to play. That's my belief. I'm also a technologist, trained as a computer scientist. So I still believe that emerging technologies will have a profound impact on how we do research, innovation, and translate that to create impact to society and accelerate solutions towards greatest urgent problems. Today I'm in the august company of our panelists who are at the intersection of research, innovation, education, and impact. So I would use the next minutes to pick their brains. We would start with Dr. Mrityunjay, and we do opening remarks for our panelists. Welcome, and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Mrityunjay Swar. I come from university, KIT University, and I am the Director General of Research and Innovation. So the previous panel gave a lot of thought. They were talking about infrastructure, creating the ambience, but today, I'll give you very opening remarks about changing the mindset, creating the platforms, building the path. So if you go to the university ecosystem, we have been taught to do research on some projects and publish and patents, but you have to think beyond it. So I'll talk about a platform, and that's what I think today the theme is about. How do you create platforms? How do you create innovations ecosystem which can revolutionize the whole ecosystem of research? So promoting STI ecosystem is one of the mandate. So university, we do research, but when you come to the incubation center, we translate research into certain exciting things which we call product processes and gets into startup. And after that, what I realized that if you keep on building such infrastructure, but the main important thing which is missing in our ecosystem, the technology refinement, deployment, or the validation and deployment, this is missing. So you're creating now a city level of Bhubaneswar called Bhubaneswar City Knowledge Innovation Cluster, which is going to work with institutions all across Odisha, industries, policymakers, government organizations, and society also to see these technologies are not only developed, but is deployed in true sense towards social impact and towards sustainability. I think this is the mandate of my, the organizations of City Cluster and KIT Technology Business Incubator. I'll touch upon this in the next due course of time. Thank you.
Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe, your opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Harsh. In fact, morning sessions were very exciting, starting from the keynote addresses of the two panelists who are sitting here, and also the first session. Taking forward from that, we are talking about revolutionizing research in this particular panel, and how the emerging technologies can enable us all of that. And many experiments have started off a couple of years ago in right earnest, and some of them are yielding results. I'm sure many of you are aware of some of the things which AICT started about 5-6 years ago in terms of what we call starting from Smart India Hackathon, which was referred to also in the morning, which has been a very initiative which has created a innovation model in the whole country. And the technology is used because during pandemic, we couldn't have conducted that without the use of technology. We talk about access in this particular section, and access to education. Many a times people talk about digital divide. Plus, remember, if there was no technology, probably divide would be more, because building the brick and mortar buildings and schools and colleges and universities in remote areas would be very challenging. Whereas rolling out 5G in the remote villages is much easier. And therefore, there is, if anything, that is leveler, that is the technology which can be a leveler. At the same time, we also talk about ethics part of it. And if you have to check the publications done by the people to be ethically sound, then we need plagiarism check. Who else can do it other than the technology? Without the technology, probably you will not be able to scan through all the journals and then will be able to take the decision on that. And therefore, technology has been a great enabler. But I will quickly talk about 4 or 5 initiatives. I will not deal with them. When the next turn comes, I will talk about that. We talk about employability of graduates, and therefore internship portal, which we have developed for giving internships to lakhs of students. In fact, it is 2.9 million students given internship in the last couple of years, is also one which engages them indirectly in practical aspects of life, and thereby they will become innovative researchers. This is one aspect. There is a National Educational Technology Forum, which is also doing some kind of a bit where startups are promoted through that. We have a platform which is created for study in India. For students coming from abroad to study in India, naturally, they had to go through a lot of rigorous process of identifying the right institution. And there was great difficulty when they come in also, the registration of foreign students in the police thana. So there is no ease of doing business in that. And therefore, one single stop solution where right from registering to identifying the right kind of institution, to getting an admission, getting a visa, and then registration. Everything through one single portal. You know, you are uniting Ministry of Education, Ministry of External Affairs, and Ministry of Home. I think it's not a simple job which was achieved very recently and was launched by the Honorable both Education Minister as well as the Foreign Minister for ease of doing their studies in India. So some of these initiatives have really created a big difference. But the last but not the least, we talked about language. India being a very diverse country with multiple languages, 22 recognized languages themselves. And if everything goes on in English, there is a great difficulty for students in remote areas to come to higher education, especially science, technology, medicine, law, etc. So Prime Minister asked everyone to start even giving higher education in mother tongue. National Education Policy talked about it. But what was missing was there were no books available in all these domains in Indian languages. So AI-based translation tool which translates all the content, including the PDF book, into a language of the choice of any candidate has been developed. You talked about in the morning, someone said Bhashini, but the tool which we have developed in AICT is called Anuvadini. Anuvadini is one where a book which is in PDF English format, including graphs, figures, pictures, all of that, including colors, fonts of different size, get converted into Telugu, Tamil, Marathi, Kannada in a fraction of a second. I think that is what is a technology and enablement for leveling the gap which exists between those who are in the remote areas and the mainstream, in the cities and towns. Thank you very much.
I couldn't agree more. Using AI to translate books, we do that as well to translate books. Also get books that are written in German and Italian language into English. So it's a game leveler where it makes it accessible to a lot more audience. So absolutely. I would now want to go to you, Hari, so you can give your opening comments.
Sure, thank you, and great to be part of this panel, and thanks again to the organizers, CSIR, IMMT, for being such wonderful hosts. So for my 2 minutes, given the topic is about revolutionizing research and the potential of technologies, emerging technologies, I think the technology side of it is relatively easier to get excited about. AI, ML, quantum computing, material science, gene editing. There's lots of cool stuff happening. To me, the revolutionizing part happens if we use it to solve the right kinds of problems, and particularly problems that will help the inclusive growth and development vision that India stands for, which has also been a central theme of the G20. So to do that, my sense is it's going to require the governments to obviously be in the lead to lay out the priorities, whether it's for healthcare and the potential to use, AI to improve our epidemic preparation, monitoring, response, or whether it's to come up with, more personalized solutions that can deal with the genetic diversity of India's populations. There's the sickle cell anemia campaign that's been launched, that now affects tribal populations most of all. So how can you harness technologies to help solve those problems? So I think government coming up with the set of problem statements in areas like health, I'd say agriculture, because food security is going to be affected by climate change. Sustainable livelihoods, especially for women, because part of the divide, the digital divide, is also the gender divide. And how we can more purposively bridge that. And the fourth would be on connectivity. I mean, India has done a phenomenal job of 4G, then 5G, maintaining data costs very low, which is one of the big reasons it's been an inclusive kind of effort, right? If data costs were as high as they are in many other countries in the world, that divide would have been worsened. But staying ahead of the curve in terms of coming up with the next generation of solutions, so all parts of India can have high-speed connectivity, because that's how more and more people are going to come into the realm of where they can exploit and leverage the potential of these emerging technologies. So to me, those are some of the considerations. The coolness of the technologies is a given, and I think very easy to get excited about that. I think focusing on how we apply them to what kinds of problems, and making sure that the government and society have some role in helping at least prioritize problems that will have more inclusive outcomes before the technologies run right. I think those would be some of the considerations to keep in mind. Thank you.
Actually, the interesting point that you make about affordable application of technology and making it therefore accessible to everybody is a recurring theme that we've been seeing today. So it's a very, very important point. Shiv, your opening remarks.
Thanks, Harsh. Yeah, I spoke a bit about it in the morning, so I'm not going to talk about the potential of India and the research capability. As I said, if you walk in my campus in the US, every 100 meters you will see a few Indian engineers. So the idea is not to kind of say, hey, we have the talent and what are we doing to the world of technology. And I think I want to build on what Hari said. In the world, or at least the company that I come from, one part is the innovation. But to what Hari said, eventually it's all about impact. So when we build technologies, yes, people build it for the coolness of it. Oh, look at this interface, this is so cool. Or look at this AI tool, how cool this looks. It can, we have a language model called NLLB 200, no language left behind. And we've already successfully deployed it for Indic languages for about 27 of them with 70% accuracy. So the question is, if you keep aside the innovation for a second, which is a given that I'm an academic institution, how do you solve for the impact part of it? And I think what we have seen and where technology can play a role to showcase these issues of impact, I think Hari's framing is awesome, saying that, hey, tell me what the problem is, then I deploy the technology. So the role of technology companies is very simple. Create the platform and let innovation happen on it, right? But eventually, who's driving the impact? Either the person who's framing the problem for us. So I would say COVID was an unfortunate time in our lives, but what happened during COVID? People took innovative ideas to create impact. I'll give education as an example, and you might feel that I'm giving you very simplistic examples of how WhatsApp was used. Even the NEP, National Education Policy, recognized during COVID, the one way people continued their education was WhatsApp. Because students could use single mobile device in their household in rural areas from their father, from their mother to continue getting those classes. Now, you might say, yeah, so what's the big deal? It's such a simple thing. But did anybody think of it? We did not create WhatsApp thinking that it will be used in COVID to deliver education modules, right? There is a not-for-profit, and I'm sure, Hari, you would have heard, called Rocket Learning in rural Haryana. Everything delivered over WhatsApp in rural areas, and they built AI tools to test how smart the student is getting, all using WhatsApp. So the one thing is technology can provide solutions, but who creates those models of impact is what that matters. Another example, and again, I think this is where I would say, the credibility of Indian talent, both as a consumer and as a problem solver. When COVID happened, we know that the entire world, especially the West, was struggling to show your COVID certificate, right? And here was an Indian traveling overseas on their WhatsApp they could download thanks to Covin platform. So we built over Covin to say, hey, can you use the API to download your COVID vaccination certificate? It was mind-boggling, and I think the External Affairs Minister has quoted the example quite a bit, that he and his son went to a restaurant in New York, and he was asked, he took out a piece of paper and where he kind of showed his vaccine certificate. So again, the issue is why technology exists and what it can do, we have to be very clear. That's one part of it. Second, and I'll end because I want to give some specific examples during the second round, is how can companies contribute by open sourcing a lot of the stuff that we do? There's a very interesting, and you guys should look at, there's a value investor in the US, he's actually ex-Facebook, but he's a Sri Lankan guy called Chamat. You should look at one of his videos. He said, while everybody talks about Coca-Cola as a company, as a brand, but Coca-Cola wouldn't have come around if refrigeration was not invented. When fridges became very easy to adopt, that's how Coca-Cola's fortunes shot up, because that's how you see big those machines with Coke in it. Nobody wants a warm Coca-Cola, right? So at the end of the day, how do you connect the dots between the innovation and the impact, and how do you create business models over it? I talked about Aveti, and I think I was talking to a professor here sitting in front of me, and thanks to Professor Sahasrabudhe's support of what we do. Imagine learning chemistry lessons through a textbook versus walking amongst molecules. Now, it sounds weird, but for a student to experience how molecules disintegrate, and you take two pieces of hydrogen, if I get it right, H2O, right? Yeah. Two pieces of hydrogen and one piece of oxygen, and boom came a drop of water. The absorption of that, and somebody was telling in the previous panel that the child's absorption happens till the age of 10. If from 5 to 10 we can give them that experience, that's impact according to me. So I think focus on impact is absolutely critical.
I actually made beautiful points about how emerging technology can accelerate innovation to impact, research to reality. And the second thing I also took away is all those technologies as building blocks, so you could build on top of each other. The refrigeration example and the WhatsApp example, very beautifully summarized. Thank you. I want to go to you, Professor Murthy, for your...
Yeah, as he was pointing out, I mean, India has been really leading. I mean, last 10 days, I was in US. Here, I don't carry my wallet at all. I just carry my mobile. Even on a roadside chaiwala, I can pay through this mobile. This is not possible in US, I think. So this is something which we should all be very proud of. I remember when demonetization happened, I was at IIT Madras. Within 1 week, an app has been developed which tells in which ATM there is money available. Okay, because those days, finding an ATM where money is available was very difficult. So definitely we have been doing exceedingly well. But what Professor Anil is dreaming of, which is a dream of our Prime Minister. Recently, in the 3rd anniversary of NEP, Prime Minister Modi ji clearly told that we should be able to impart education in the language that a rural mass knows about it. For example, no country, I mean most of the countries that we know, they learn their science and engineering in their local language. Whereas we know we have brilliant people in every corner of the country in villages. But for them, the first barrier is they have to learn English and then learn engineering. So if we can really remove that barrier, and thanks to the technologies, these technologies were not available 25 years back. Now you can do speech to text. All the NEP lectures or SWAYAM lectures are being transferred, transcribed into textbooks, and now using an ML, whatever number of languages, 16 or whatever number. And if this can come, really, I'm sure India is going to transform. So the major transformation, if I can say, the emerging technologies are able to do is this social transformation that one, if he is willing, because I have seen when I was teaching at Kharagpur, one student suddenly told me, sir, you are teaching very fast. Then I asked him, can you please show me your notes? I saw he writes his notes in Bengali. So whatever I'm teaching, he's actually translating it into his language, because I don't teach in Bengali, I teach in English. So, and as a result, he's not able to catch my next sentence. And I have seen that. So I took him to my home. So for 1 month, I taught him in English. Okay, taught him English, okay, not in English. And slowly he picked up very well and finally got a B grade in my course. So it is important, friends, that we need to realize this. I mean, whatever we say, Britishers have given the language, but we don't need to really carry forward on that. It is important that we should be able to teach technology to our people when they need it in their own language. So I think that's something we are able to do with the technologies, and that's a major, I would say, boon nowadays. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. We are such a diverse country, people speaking so many different languages, and if we have to harness the potential of this great talent that we have out there, it's about reaching to them in their language, in the way they understand it, and technology can build the...
I always strongly believe, if you forget your language, you forget your culture. If you forget your culture, you forget your identity. So it's important, friends, that we need to be strong in our language. And that can be done through this. Thank you.
Excellent, that's a great point. I have a few questions based on the opening remarks. We covered a lot of interesting topics, and you have a lot of experience of applying technology to create change. So I want to encourage you to share your experience. Please add on top of one another. I want to start with you, Dr. Mrityunjay. In your view, how are emerging technologies like metaverse, you talked about metaverse, spatial computing, quantum computing, blockchain, artificial intelligence, AR, VR, how does it have an impact on the research and innovation landscape? Especially you have a front row seat because you're looking at innovation, entrepreneurship, and business incubation, so on and so forth in KIT. So what's your view on this? What are your...
Thank you. I think I'll be now... So I come to the point, technologies are very, very important, but the most important is, as I said, platforms. So what we do in universities, creating platforms which promote such technology, and technology can build some, what you call, solution which can have some commercial viability. So I'll give you an example. 2009-10, I approached the government of India that let's promote innovations here in Odisha. I was been, we have been told the Odia people are quite lazy because they eat and sleep. So thanks God today, none of them are sleeping because they're more towards innovations. So because we have created now platforms in our states, many institutions here, IITs, IMMT, of course they are quite premier organizations, but sitting in KIT University, we have also built one of the largest ecosystem of innovations which is promoting all these AI, ML, AR, VR, big data analytics, blockchains, all startups are there, and they created one of the very big company, you can Google it, Far Eye Technology. It's a digital logistic company started by 3 startups. They came to us, and I'm a professor for biotechnology, microbiology. Not much of understanding what the logistic company they do. But we bring in the platform to them called Innovation Incubation Center, thanks to DST Government of India, who really supported this. And also, I'm a big fan of Anil sir, because whenever you go to him, he talks about those hackathons, please make it a big movement. So he's a technology-led movement person who promotes startup. In the university, we built them, and this company came and started some innovations in terms of digital logistics. Today, it's a 9,000 crores company. What the problem they've solved? The main, the platform what we create, the main problem we face that we do not bring the right problem statement. So how technology can bring the clarity in the problem statement is very, very important. So we use these platforms to bring the right problem statements, bring these people like Farah I said about, and today they have now solved one of the biggest problem, the last mile delivery of whatever the Flipkart, Amazon, whatever the Deutsche Post, the Swiss Post, everybody is their client and they're growing and growing. What they realize the problem, there is no record who is delivering what time, the time logger, everything. So they solve it. Now you can track it. You can also track what people look at Odisha, what kind of business happens here because the lot of delivery happens. And so this is your problem statement they have solved. Why I'm saying all these things? Because all of us are researchers and we focused on projects, publications. Now, please, I'll be requesting, get into the technology domain, go to the incubation platform, where a lot of this science, what we do, has got a lot of applications. And people have solved right problem statements. I'll give you an example. We have a lot of anemia in the many parts of the globe. Of course, the BMGF, the country head is sitting here. We have a company who is very good in artificial intelligence. He came to us and said, I want to really bring a platform, a device. He's not an electronics guy, but bring a device which can really look at the 7 blood parameters only by putting your fingerprints. So this is an AI platform technology called EdgeRx technology, and the company is now growing. Because why I'm saying, because he's also a student who was an employee and came to a platform called Incubation Center, baked up by the AI platform and created one of the solutions. Now today, you can look at your hemoglobin, bilirubin, creatinine, the 7 blood parameters in less than 30 seconds. Of course, the machine has to learn more and more data. This is what a trial phase, but still the company is growing and growing, raising funds. Why I'm saying he could have done research to publish papers. Now what we are creating platforms in universities to build solutions for the future. And for that, everything has to be backed up by this technology, AI, ML, blockchain, and universities should create such platforms, and be requesting all the young minds here, do not get into driven by the technology only, you should be driven by the problem statement. So look for problems around you which are very, very interesting to solve, and which there's a need to solve, and there's an unmet need to solve. And then, of course, the affordability, the scalability will come into picture. That habit of developing solutions out of right problems is missing in many of our ecosystem, but that's what we have built, and we have never stopped that, and that's what I'm saying. The professors can teach, can do research, but he or she can do beyond that. So what I talk to my colleagues, not only in Bhubaneswar and KIT, but the whole ecosystem here now through City Cluster, let us build partnerships and see that we create platforms which are not in isolation. They should talk to each other and bring the right problem statement of Odisha, of course the country, and of course the globe. And today, after this session, there is one interesting startup sitting here, Nexus Power, who is developing a next generation organic batteries, which comes from crop residues. So you'll hear her, very, very exciting journey. So that's what I always tell, creating platform, very, very important. Technologies are always fall in place, because even morning somebody said, the technology is now phasing out from the ecosystem. So this will come and go, but what the best practices you should build, creating the right platform which should really take up the problem statements and then build solutions for the future. And that's what the Research Conclave is focusing on, creating platforms to revolutionize the research outcomes. And I'm always a believer of that. Pick up problem statements, make a habit of solving those problems, and build a team and see that this grows to a scale level. I think that's what I'll speak to all of you. And City Cluster is now coming in front, which I'll elaborate a bit more. The iSTEM portal, because everybody talks about infrastructure. IITs, everybody has, IMMT, all institutions have a lot of infrastructure, but the main problem that people like sitting in some of the rural districts do not get access to it. Can you get into iSTEM portal, where many of the organizations has come on board? Or, you can log in. I have seen people from Northeast accessing iSTEM portal and getting their experiments done using the equipment sitting in Bangalore or sitting in Bhubaneswar. I think this technology should bring such kind of changes, and I'm a strong believer that if you work together as a cluster model, as a cluster approach, I think we can solve many of our problems which we face. We talk about it, but we do not solve it. I think City Cluster is a very interesting format of Office of PSA to Government of India, and Bhubaneswar Cluster is one of the 6 city clusters, and we are very happy to tell you that first time all institutions of Odisha, Bhubaneswar especially, be it IIT or Director Sir is here, IMMT, CPET, RMRC, and all, ILS, DBT, everybody is coming on board, and we are now talking how can we bring solutions, at least taking some of the problem statement of Odisha, and technology is the backbone of it, be it AI, ML, AR, VR, all are implemented in our day-to-day life and solving a lot of research questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also, the platform approach that you talked about and using technology to build those clusters and build an ecosystem in particular cities in order to drive research and innovation, I think is a very good model. I want to stay in the example space, right? And I want to come to you, Dr. Anil, specifically about AR, VR, and how it can be deployed in education. Shiv talked about an example, the H2O example. It's now vivid in my mind, wearing such a headset, but application of AR, VR in education and building this infrastructure.
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. We know that the technologies are existing, AR, VR, XR, artificial intelligence, machine learning. But how we can really make use of them unless we open up for the startup workspace to create solutions, which is like a UPI in education, and give that to the school education onwards. We talked about how we create a revolutionize research, but it should start from the childhood. And therefore, right in the schools, if there are games, there are videos, there are animations, which students right from 3rd, 4th, 5th standard start watching, understand chemistry the way he was talking about, understand physics and complex phenomena in nature, the challenges of what we call as environmental hazards that are happening. I think students will get motivated and inspired to start doing research right from there. I don't know how many of you know Chota Bheem. Chota Bheem is known. But how many of you know Chota Scientist? You don't know. But KPIT in Pune has got a scheme where they innovate and then want to bring scientists from out of them. We all are aware of the Niti Ayog's tinkering labs. There are 10,000 of them. There are lots of innovations happening at the school level. Research is happening. The problem is some of our teachers need to be trained in that, and AR, VR, XR has to be used first to train the teachers. If you do that, they will not become bottlenecks, but they will become what we call supporters or the mentors for those students to go ahead. And that is the real challenge which we are facing. Although we have rolled out several schemes, but I think to reach to nooks and corners, it will still take time. We want, whether it is the social sector, industry, the colleges and universities, like CSR institutions have also got some kind of a institutional corporate responsibility, and they should go ahead and try to solve the problems of the schools and small colleges in and around IITs and NITs. Thereby, we will create an ecosystem where research is breathed. That breathing will start. And that's why, whether it is in terms of even examination question papers, we have most of the questions asked in our schools to colleges to universities, except for probably in PhD, they're all rote learning. You by heart something and omit it in the examination hall and get full marks. But do we have a question bank where critical thinking, analytical ability is really motivated to be understood? And if you ask such question in interviews, these industry people, when they ask the question, हमारे कॉलेज में ये पढ़ाया नहीं था, ना हमने कोशिश भी किया. So this is the answer which students give, and therefore our question papers themselves have to be changed completely in terms of maybe why 3-hour examination. Let there be open book examination of 10 hours, 15 hours, 2 weeks. Let them struggle, get the solution. Let them work in teams. I think this is all possible with the use of technology, and that is where AR, VR, XR. What is a new sector which is AVGC, animation, visual effects, and including not only gaming, but comics can be part of that. I referred to Chota Bheem, that's why. I think all of this can be part of our education ecosystem, training our teachers. I'm sure next 10, 15 years will be the golden years of India. Thank you.
We had a lot of examples of application of technology. I also want to add to it, at Springer Nature, we are using AI to actually help discovery for a researcher. If you're a researcher and you want to quickly come up to speed on what's happening in your research area, stay on top of what's happening in research area. We have Nature Research Intelligence, which allows you to summarize and stay on top of your area. We allow AI tools to help you author papers. We provide AI tools to help you prevent plagiarism and so on and so forth. So there is a booth right out there. Pramod and team are actually showing some examples, so it's a shout out to them. Right out, you can go and see some of these things on how all these technologies can help you as a researcher as you go ahead in your research. So I want to actually do a bit of context switch, move out from examples and move into collaboration ecosystem, because that's a term that I really heard quite a bit, right? In order to move from research, innovation to actual impact, this collaboration is so critical. It needs to be interdisciplinary. There needs to be public-private partnerships. There was a lot of hint on that. It needs to be global. So I want to actually ask you, Professor Murthy, on some examples on collaborative research and how technology can foster that. And maybe others can add as well, because you are at the intersection of all of this.
We tried two things at IIT Hyderabad in recent times, and thanks to the COVID, we have learned how to handle things in an online way. And that gives us an opportunity to collaborate with people who are far off from you. For example, in the healthcare area, I thought in Hyderabad is known to be a good healthcare hub. So we thought how technology and healthcare can come together and do a lot of great things. For example, we started a program with L.V. Prasad Eye Hospital. We call it as MTech in Ophthalmic Engineering, where the doctors of the L.V. Prasad teach the anatomy of the eye. We teach optics and lasers. At the end of the 2-year program, the student is a laser expert for healthcare technologies. So we thought, 2 years, it has been really exciting, a lot of people to join. We joined hands with Basavatarakam, where we thought there is a need of radiation experts. So the student spends 1 full year there, okay, and online teaching, but also spending time with the patients, and finally comes out as a radiation expert. We also saw another program where we call it as medical device innovation, where the student spends 4 months in a hospital, comes out, picks up a problem of the student, works on that, and then at the end of the 2 years has a product, prototype in hand. So it's, when you give opportunities to students, I have seen actually in the last 4 years of experimenting at IIT Hyderabad, amazing results can come. They are brilliant people. And for example, even a first semester student at IIT Hyderabad, we have started something called Build Projects, bold and unique ideas leading to development. Twice a year, we call for proposals from students, and we give some money for them, minimum to start with 1 lakh. And then we also tell them, if you think your courses are disturbing you to work on your innovative idea, I give you a semester break with 6 credits. A first semester BTech student can take a semester break at IIT Hyderabad. And this we have seen giving amazing results. Last 4 years, we have more than 135 startups, created more than 1,200 crores of revenue, more than 1,000 jobs. A second year, third year BTech student comes to me and tells me, sir, yesterday I paid salary to 5 of my employees. This is the culture that we have been able to see. So it's important, friends, as Professor Anil is telling, it's important that faculty should become good mentors. And when you try to do that mentorship, students will come with amazing things. And these, the emerging technologies that are available are going to help you in much better way. So I think that way collaborations are useful. Even we are setting up centers with collaborations. For example, I have set up one at IIT Madras. We call it as, what is called National Facility for Atom Probe Tomography. And now, being at IIT Hyderabad, we looked at, in Hyderabad there are about 40 different institutions. We thought, why don't we come together and start working on grand challenges of the country? You all possibly know, TIFAC has identified 12 grand challenges, starting from clean air, potable water, and so on and so forth. We thought, can we come together? Each of us have some strengths, but we have always been working in silos. Can we now come together and identify who are all the people who will work on each of these problems? And now we have a proposal with ministry, which we call it as glue grant, gluing people together. 600 crores is going to come very soon. For each vertical, we have about 50 crores project. And Ministry is, Dharmendra Pradhan ji is very keen on seeing this kind of collaborative projects to be supported. So I think there is a lot that we can do together. Thank you.
Great examples on collaboration. I want to actually go to you, Hari. You are working for one of the biggest philanthropic organizations. You are really seeing the impact materialize. So I want to ask you how emerging technologies can help advance discoveries which will have impact on climate change, healthcare, poverty alleviation. What are some of the examples that you've seen?
Yeah, lots of examples. And I think some of what you've heard in the responses from Dr. Swar and Dr. Murthy are, I think, and I think what Professor Sahasrabudhe said about, language. So I think the cool part is there's a lot of innovation happening. It's happening in a lot of the non-traditional places. So if I take healthcare, the diagnostics ecosystem in India was very small, almost non-existent pre-COVID. In the 3 years of COVID, we've gone from that to one of the most vibrant diagnostic, national ecosystems anywhere. And the opportunity now is, to develop point-of-care solutions. Because, very rightly, the government of India is prioritizing primary healthcare and preventive health. Because any country's health system is going to get overburdened if you're waiting for people to show up, in hospitals. I mean, we can spend the 18% like the US does and not get good outcomes, which is what they face. For us, we spend 4%. The key is how can we maximize the outcomes with that level of expenditure? And to me, coming up with point-of-care diagnostics for a whole lot of conditions, I'd love to find out more about this blood pressure, blood monitor that you talked about. Those kinds of solutions, whether it's for infectious diseases like TB, Kala-Azar, lymphatic filariasis, where the government has elimination goals, whether it's for chronic conditions like hypertension. If you diagnose hypertension and diabetes early, you can ward off late-stage organ damage, like chronic kidney disease, which requires expensive dialysis. You can dramatically bring down the incidence if you, identify and manage, hypertension and diabetes early on, right? Another one is, I have to go back to vaccines, but mRNA platforms which were developed during COVID actually may be even more important as we think of animal vaccines. I think what COVID revealed to us is the risk of, these crossover pandemics where, something may originate in an animal species and then crosses over to humans. Now, if you can diagnose and manage infectious pathogens while they're in the native populations, whether it's wildlife or livestock, you can prevent a lot of downstream damage. mRNA platforms for animal vaccines, again, the government of India is taking that up as a priority. There's a National One Health mission that's being designed by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor. That's seeking to bring together the best integrated surveillance so you can actually test for multiple pathogens, identify which ones may be risky for human populations, develop early stage vaccines and keep them ready, before a pandemic happens. If you have stockpiled candidates that have been through phase 2 trials, then you can, in a matter of few months, scale that up. That's again, very, valid and, clear lesson from COVID, which again is being taken up. Agriculture, again, because I said climate change is going to impact yields. It's going to, impact water availability. So developing new seeds that can withstand these kinds of changes without compromising, productivity, because we will have a growing population. So we need to feed more people with, a fixed parcel of land. So the only way that can happen is if we come up with seeds that are, more resilient to these kinds of stresses, require less water, and allow farmers to still make viable incomes, because, no one's going to keep doing it at a loss. So that's another very interesting area. I think the whole question of, precision health and starting to think about, how much can you start to personalize the challenges, the health issues that people may face during their lifetimes, if you understand very early on from, genomic sequencing, what they may be predisposed to, and create those pathways where, again, you can ward off or prevent severe disease. Lots of potential that's happening there as well. And AI/ML, I don't want to get into because everyone's spoken about it. To me, I think coming up with language solutions is something that can be India's contribution, not just for ourselves, but to the world. Coming up with platforms that can really, to Professor Murthy's example, if he could be speaking in English and, a student can be getting a translated Bengali version, man, that kid is going to learn so much faster. And that is very much possible now with, AI. So I think these are all very exciting possibilities where real solutions are on the anvil. And I think the great part is, we are at the, I would say, the hockey stick part of the curve in terms of, the takeoff possibilities. Because we have lots of young people who are coming into new institutions who are not cynical, who see possibilities and are driving for solutions. I mean, so to me, these next 10 years are really where India is going to take off, and that's going to, impact the world in a good way. So those are my thoughts.
The decade where we emerge as the scientific superpower. Yeah, absolutely. Great examples. I want to wrap up the panel because I also want to open up for audience questions, but I have one pressing question, and that is these technologies are exciting, but what are some ethical concerns that we should really be worried about? And should policymakers strike a balance between fostering this innovation and also safeguarding all these ethical and safety standards? And that's a question to you, Shiv, that I want you to address.
Sure. Thanks so much. There is a lot of excitement about technologies like AI, ML we talked about. Before I get to that, I mean, I don't need to drive traffic to Meta websites, but whoever is interested in the large language model, go to ai.meta.com. I encourage you to download the language model and fool around with it. India is one of those countries which is downloading it the most, Indian researchers, and now it's open for commercial use, ai.meta.com. And to what Hari said, just another example, we have something called MML project, massively multiple language model project. We have experimented with almost dialects included, speech to text, text to speech for Indic languages. Again, 70% accuracy for 60 languages which don't have a script. So you just speak, converts into text, and vice versa. So again, not to harp on examples, but just it's mind-boggling what is possible. On the ethical part of it, I think I touched upon it briefly in the morning. I'm not one of those who's scared of technology. I am someone who will walk right into it thinking that, okay, so what if I get burnt a little bit? And hence, I feel that there should be certain guardrails or principles, not to regulate technology, but to regulate the outcomes of it. Because if you look at, and this is one area I'm very familiar with, I'm not a technology person, but I'm a policy person, governments have also become far more evolved now. They are not saying I'm going to, if you remember in the last 3 to 4 months, and Hari and I were talking briefly, when Sam Altman came down to India, everybody was obsessed, and then he made one statement that India is never going to go big, and now he's supporting regulation of technology, regulation of AI. Hate to say this, some people in Bangalore are also professing that curb the development of AI. AI is a foundational tool. It's like saying, let's shut the internet down because, oh my God, internet will corrupt our students. You don't think like that, right? What is the outcome that you fear the most? Regulate that. So that's generally the framework within which I think ethics and basic principles get addressed. But having said that, I think for commercial organizations, yes, there should be certain principles we need to follow. And one of the things that we are developing in our head, at least, I call it the TOSS principle, that between transparency, openness, sharing what you are doing, stress testing it, is the way to go. Transparency, whenever we are releasing any of our AI models, we are releasing system cards to tell you how is it faring on various aspects which you could worry. So for example, between stress testing and transparency, we realized that one of our AI tool models called BlenderBot 2 could have led to the misinformation thing propagating quite fast. So we put some restrictions and released BlenderBot 3, which is performing far better. Simple things, right? Openness, how is industry coming together? It is not just enough for government and industry to come. Industry has to come together. The onus is on us. So, and again, between Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all these companies came together to launch the partnership for AI. Everybody is a signatory to it of certain basic principles that we will follow. And eventually, on the stress test and shareability, I think more research we publish, and I encourage youngsters who are into the world of AI. There is one person in our company called Jan LeCun. He's based out of Paris, not out of America for some reason. He's one of the world's most renowned AI researcher. All he does is publish. He does AI research and publishes papers open for everybody's consumption, something that, Stephen, you may not like, but he releases it in public, and he wants people to question. So he opens it up and says, please question me, so that, because that's the only way we can get better. What is important as a company for me, for my commercial interests, I will never release, I understand that. But AI is not like my backyard. AI is something which is the ground on which everybody will play. So if we can follow this basic toss principle, I think that would be very helpful. From a regulation perspective, I think India is at the, I will say it very openly, I think India has come up with one of the best possible legal frameworks for data protection. You may say that the West got to know all these things first, yes, but India has shown that user right and innovation can be done in a very balanced fashion. We as a company have welcomed the data protection law. Why? Look at where we started. 4 years ago, the first draft said data restrictions. Data will not go out. Now there's a debate like data is oil or data is water, and we can run a poll. We think data has to flow freely because Indian companies are also going to go abroad, right? It is not just one way that we are coming here. Yes, it is one of the biggest data markets, but what are the guardrails around it? And what the latest text of the law has shown is that it is possible to balance the concerns with the rights, with the possibilities of innovation. Now, there was a time when everybody would say, oh my God, regulation, no, tech companies don't like regulation. We have done completely the other way. We welcome regulation. Regulations have to be progressive. And I think this establishment has at least shown us that they are willing to engage. Most of the text writing of the law is consultative. They don't write laws in absentia, like we are not absent, we are present in the room. They ask us, okay, if this is written like this, what happens? But at the center of it is user rights, user awareness, user safety. And I don't think we can dispute. I will never say that Facebook will grow bigger by hurting users, right? So if user right is the imperative, then I think we are all aligned in what we need to deliver on. We may have different motivations of making money. Government does not. Government has to protect the citizen of the country. So I think there's a fine balance, and this government has shown that. So between companies following broadly the TOS principle and working and engaging with the government on self-regulation, there is a lot of appetite for self-regulation right now in this country. I think if you keep these basic foundational principles without getting scared of technology, I think as Hari and as Professor Sahasrabudhe said, we are in the golden era, in my mind. And honestly speaking, to his face, we are lucky to have somebody like Professor Sahasrabudhe. What he's talking about with his experience of training teachers. If you don't train teachers, I'm sure some of you have young children. I have a young 9-year-old son. The questions he asks me, if I don't know, then I'm actually doing disservice to him. I'm going to stunt his growth. So I might as well read before I can tell him what is happening in the world.
Yeah, in terms of regulation, the focus on outcomes and making sure we are aligned on the outcomes and safety on those outcomes, I think was a great point. With that, we had a brilliant discussion. I want to open it up for the audience. Maybe we have time for 2 questions, and I have to wrap it up by 3 and give it over to Akanksha. So, do we have any questions from the audience? There's one there.
Good morning, sir. Good afternoon. You can hear me?
Yes.
I am Vanshaj. I am a student, undergraduate physics student from NISA. So I had a question. Like some of you talked about identifying a problem statement and working to build a high impact solution. That and things like the KIT Innovation Cluster, they are a good step in that direction. But startups there need to be profit-based, which is nothing wrong with that. But if one has an idea which resolves a social evil or a social problem, but cannot be profit-based, like what Hari sir does, so how does one go about getting funding for that? Like, that is my question. Thank you.
Funding for... Yeah, you can't make profit out of it, but there is a social impact. How do you fund
Yeah.
something like that? Great
No,
question.
if you ask me, most of the startups are socially driven, right? For profit, not that's maybe second question. Now, if you ask me a very simple way, how do you get funding for social startup which are not for profit? Now, if you're a student, you can go for a lot of fellowship program. If you really want to experiment on those social ideas, relevant ideas, there are many fellowship programs are there. One of the fellowship program by the BIRAC DBT called SIP program, where you get 50,000 rupees per month plus 5 lakhs rupees of grant called Kickstart grant. If you do good, you get next level of 50 lakhs of grant funding. That's from the government side. But if you are with NISER and going exciting work, you can go to your incubation center if they have, and it's a Section 8 not-for-profit company, they also get a lot of CSR fund. If you, let's say, come to our incubator, which is one of the largest in the country, have more than now 400 odd companies promoted, 72 are social startups. So you'll be very surprised to know one of the social startup where our growth is 16x. It means no more technology or innovative company will have growth. Social startups also growing in nature. Now, what I'll suggest you, please reach out to your mentors, the centers, which is talking about it. CSR fund will be one of the enabler. We have several industries, companies, banks funding innovative ideas which are socially relevant. I think reach out to them, a lot of funding. Just to all the crowd here, funding is never a hurdle. These days, funding is so much available, you cannot take it. Only the interesting problems that are the only challenges. So please look for funding, they will come to you, definitely.
Thank
To
you.
add to it, what is most important is an excellent idea. Once you have an excellent idea and you promote it, there can be funding from CSR, there can be funding from crowdsourcing, there can be angel investors. There are people who will rush to you actually. So it is the idea which is important and great actually.
But I hope you were not asking that you don't want to make money, but the idea is great. You still wanted to make money, right? If you want to make money, as they said, there's no dearth of money. I think it's the impact of the idea which will matter. Money will find you if you have a good idea.
Come up with a great idea, solve a problem, and money will find you.
That's how most problems get solved.
Yeah, I'm Lakshmidhar Beshra from IMMT Bhubaneswar. So first of all, thank you all the panelists for very, very important points that you brought out. Particularly, Professor Swar talked about the problem statement, and also there were talk of the training to the faculties. I am one of the faculty of this institute. But one of the things which I want to bring before you, sir, is that sometimes there are very great minds in the countrysides. The students who are coming from very remote areas, they have a very bright ideas. But when they come to big cities and big institutions, sometimes they get overwhelmed by the circumstances and the scenario there. So there also is a challenge how to make them comfortable. I'll take just 1-2 examples of it. I think we faculties should also allow our students to make mistakes. This I have observed from my lab and given and allowed them to make mistakes. I think the learnings that they get from doing mistakes, there is much more potential. They contribute bigger, which we have seen even in the case of our Chandrayaan. We have learned so much from Chandrayaan 2, and now we are a success. So similar things. So I'm very happy to say before that, one of my PhD students, who in fact the problem statement, Professor Suar sir, was all formulated by him, Mr. N. Usakiran, I'm talking about him, and ultimately he patented, and he has now started his startup. In the morning session, you talk about nobody has approached you. In fact, he was just discussing with me last week that we come to you and take suggestions. So these are exciting times. So these are the just points I just wanted to tell before you. That one point is that to take care of the students coming from remote areas and make them comfortable in this big scenario. And another thing is that to allow students to make mistakes. These are only my comments, sir. Thank you.
I just want to add one. I always tell my colleagues at IIT Hyderabad, if somebody says he has never failed in life, he has never learned anything in life. So it's very important, friends.
Hello everyone, so I'm Siddhant, a recent graduate in physics, like in astronomy. I was studying in University of Toronto, right now like from KT University. So I wanted to ask a question to probably Meta, because they're a big company in AI. So should companies like Meta and the big companies that work on machine learning algorithms, should they focus on current problems which have because you need to train models, AI models, before they work on the problem, and you have a lot of data available, for example, transcribing languages, as sir was saying, from speech to text and stuff. So you can easily work on those models. Or should companies focus on futuristic problems where you don't have a lot of data available, to train the AI, but you might have to work on the problem, and you don't have a lot of data to actually train the AI. So how do you how does the company focus on what problem to go for?
I think it's a great question. How are we releasing what we are learning so that further research can be built on? I mean, I have to sound a bit immodest to say that we are a bit of an aberration where we actually release data sets for public research. So this is coming from our own work that we do, and then we release data sets so that researchers can work on it. But having said that, on the AI front, our fundamental principle is very clear. We will be open sourcing most of it because, as I gave you the refrigerator Coca-Cola example, we believe AI is a foundational tool. AI cannot be owned in my backyard. I have to open up AI models because if I don't open, 3 problems will happen. One, ecosystem will not grow. If the ecosystem does not grow, I cannot be the only one making money because I am a foundational company, right? I have my business model already sorted, right? I am a digital advertising company. So for example, Meta is right now using AI tools to run digital advertising, which means that the algorithm which we run to tell the company what ad they should make to target a user, it's all being done by AI tools. When we do content moderation, which is like if you violate our terms of service, there's no human being sitting. It's all being done by AI. But that is for my commercial proprietary work. But the foundational learning that we have from that, we believe in releasing it because these AI tools have to be released because the ecosystem has to grow. That's number one. Second, as I said, if I don't release it, I don't know where it's going to go wrong. I have to get it stress tested by the research community because if they don't stress test it, I don't know it all. I cannot hire unlimited number of engineers. We are already infamous for having laid off engineers, right? So I think stress testing cannot happen within a closed environment. And the third and the most important thing, if you look at it, is we don't know every idea on this earth. I mean, yes, we are a big company, we are an innovative company, but there are many ideas which are happening outside. And we get excited looking at ideas in our ecosystem. And if the startups grow, we grow. Who will use our foundational tools? The startups will grow, right? And eventually, if all of us grow together, I think that's the only way the future of internet is going to grow. So for example, when we launched the Quest devices, everybody said, oh, this is a proprietary headset. Yeah, the headset is proprietary. But what you see in it is not proprietary. Anybody can create a game or anybody, I mean, one of the most famous games in the headset is an Indian company called IB Cricket. You have to play cricket in the metaverse to see how real it is. It's being exported the most, downloaded the most in the US. Because all Indians in the US want to play cricket wearing the headset. So the question is, business will not grow if we keep it everything. Now, you may look at some of our past products and say, but this is not the way you behave, but the future is different. What we did in the past doesn't mean that the future is not going to be. So for Meta, I think the fundamental principle is believing in open innovation and open sourcing these language models and open sourcing further AI tools so that people can build on it. One last example I'll tell you again, going back to language, for some reason that's the theme of the day. We are collaborating with a company who were a part of a not-for-profit, so somebody said, and they are collaborating with IIT Chennai. Can WhatsApp build, and this is the Honorable Minister also talked to us about it, can you create chatbots in all local languages where the school teacher does not have to worry which language they are teaching, into Dr. Murthy's point? So students can get those questions answered in local language. So based on the Bhashini thing, can we build AI-enabled chatbots in all Indian languages? So somebody's collaborating on it. And we will collaborate by providing the tool. And I think that's how I would say, synergies of the ecosystem will grow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to add on that. So I think Shivnath gave a great response on, Meta's approach and I think how private sector approaches. But I think it's fair to say that, if it's too frontier a problem, it might not make sense for private sector to get involved. That's where government and philanthropy actually can play a role. I mean, philanthropy in many ways is the purest risk capital because you're not expecting any financial return. You're just hoping to either succeed or fail for the right reasons. In fact, Warren Buffett, who's one of the donors to our foundation, says if you're not failing 95% of the time, you're not working on the right problems. So I think that is the role, philanthropy and governments, right? So which is why the ecosystem in India that's emerging of, the institutions creating their incubators, making capital available, creating the mentorship networks, and not expecting everyone to succeed is critical. And I think that's where, domestic philanthropy, organizations like ours working alongside those institutions can take the risks that may be too tough for even them to take. I mean, government also is accountable to the people. You can't, throw your money down the tube if you don't know that you're going to get something out of it. So I think the combination of philanthropy and government is, where a lot of the very early stage work can happen, right? The first 3 years for a business that's not going to make money, philanthropic funding or government funding can help you validate that. And then after that, the commercial capital comes in. So I think this ecosystem of funding or the continuum of funding, pure risk from philanthropy, government, then looking at more market-based mechanisms. I think that is evolving in India, and I think we need to further strengthen it. Thanks.
So I have to, we're running out of time. This was a very engaging discussion, especially post-lunch. I think you took a lot from it. I really enjoyed it myself. So thank you very much for being with us, and thanks for this engaging panel.
Thank you very much. So we can safely conclude that it all starts with an idea. And as one of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Gilbert, says, that ideas are like your friends knocking at your door, and they won't wait for long. So if you have an idea, open the door, grab it, and act on it. And today, you have several people here who can support you in acting on your ideas to grab the opportunity and catch hold of them, have a conversation. Now I would like to request Harsh to please felicitate our panelist, Dr. Anil Sahasrabuddhe. Shri Shivnath Thukral. Shri Hari Menon. Professor B.S. Murthy. Dr. Mrityum Jaiswal. I would now request Dr. Anil Sahasrabuddhe to please felicitate. Can we have a huge round of applause for all the panelists here?